The airport was absolutely crazy that morning. People rushing everywhere, dragging suitcases, yelling into their phones, and here she was, trying to keep up with all of it while her daughter kept stopping to look at every shiny thing in the terminal. "Mommy, look at that plane," her 6-year-old squealed, pressing her little nose against the massive windows. "Sweetie, we need to hurry or we'll miss our flight," she said, trying to keep the exhaustion out of her voice. She'd worked until 2 in the morning at the diner, caught maybe 3 hours of sleep, and now they had to catch a 6 a.m. flight. Her sister's wedding was today, and missing it wasn't an option, even though the plane tickets had wiped out nearly everything she'd saved over the past 4 months. Her feet hurt in these old sneakers. She'd meant to buy new ones, but then her daughter needed new shoes for school, and well, that was that. That's how it always went. Her needs always came last, and honestly, she'd gotten used to it. Gate 17. Gate 17, she muttered to herself, squinting at the departure board while juggling her daughter's backpack, her own carry-on, and a bag with snacks because airport food was ridiculously expensive. Everything was expensive these days. They finally made it to the gate with about 15 minutes to spare. She was digging through her purse for their boarding passes when someone bumped into her from behind. Not hard, but enough that her purse slipped from her shoulder and hit the floor, spilling everything across the shiny airport tile. Oh no, no, no. She dropped to her knees, frantically grabbing at the contents. This was mortifying. Her wallet, her phone, loose change rolling everywhere, and worst of all, the stack of bills she'd been meaning to hide better. The electric bill with the red final notice stamp. The medical bill from her daughter's last emergency room visit for her asthma. The notice from her landlord about late rent. Her whole messy life was now on display at Gate 17 for everyone to see. "I'm so sorry. Let me help you," a man's voice said, and strong hands were suddenly there, helping her gather everything. "It's fine." "Really, I've got it," she said quickly, her face burning hot with embarrassment. She didn't look up, just kept shoving things back into her purse as fast as possible. "Please don't look at the bills, please don't look at the bills," she thought desperately. "Here, this rolled pretty far," the man said, handing her some quarters. "Thank you," she mumbled, finally glancing up to take the change, and then the world just stopped. Those eyes. She knew those eyes. Brown, warm, with tiny gold flecks that caught the light. She'd spent countless hours staring into those eyes, memorizing them, getting lost in them. "Katie?" he said, and his voice cracked slightly on her name. Her breath caught in her throat. "David?" It couldn't be. It absolutely could not be David Chen standing in front of her at this airport at 6 in the morning. David, who she'd loved more than she thought it was possible to love anyone. David, who she'd dated all through college before life got complicated and pulled them in different directions. David, who she still thought about sometimes late at night when she was alone and wondering how her life had gotten so far off track. But it was him. Older, yes. Different, definitely. But unmistakably him. He looked incredible. There was no other word for it. He wore a perfectly tailored navy suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His hair was styled, not the messy college look she remembered. He stood differently, too, with a confidence that hadn't been there before. Behind him, a young woman in professional attire held a leather portfolio and 2 first-class boarding passes. And here she was, on her knees on the airport floor, wearing a faded t-shirt and jeans she'd bought at a thrift store, her hair thrown up in a messy ponytail because she hadn't had time to do anything else. Surrounded by her bills and broken dreams, she wanted to disappear. To literally sink through the floor and never come back. "I can't believe this," David said, and the smile on his face was genuine, lighting up his features. "Katie, wow, it's really you." She scrambled to her feet, clutching her now stuffed purse against her chest like a shield. "Hi, yeah, it's me. This is, wow, brilliant. Just brilliant." Years of wondering what she'd say if she ever saw him again. And all she could manage was, wow. Her daughter tugged at her sleeve. "Mommy, who's this?" This is an old friend, honey," she managed, putting her hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Someone I knew a long time ago." David's eyes moved to her daughter and something flickered across his face. Surprise? Curiosity? She couldn't quite read it. "And who's this beautiful young lady?" "I'm Lily," her daughter announced proudly. "I'm 6 3/4. We're going to Aunt Rachel's wedding and I get to be the flower girl." "That's a very important job," David said seriously, crouching down to Lily's level. "Flower girls make the whole wedding special." Lily beamed at him, and Katie felt her heart do that thing it used to do around David. That little flip that she'd forgotten about until this exact moment. "Mr. Chen, they're about to call first-class boarding," the assistant said quietly, stepping closer. Mr. Chen, so formal, so different from the David she'd known. The one who wore band t-shirts and stayed up until 3 a.m. arguing about philosophy and eating cheap pizza. "Just give me a minute, Melissa," David said, standing up. His eyes locked on Katie's. "I have so many questions. How have you been? What are you doing? Where are you living? Are you married?" The questions tumbled out fast, eager, like he couldn't help himself. Katie's mind raced. How could she possibly answer any of that honestly? How could she explain that life had beaten her down in ways she never expected? That the girl with big dreams he'd known in college was now someone who counted pennies and worked double shifts and cried in her car so her daughter wouldn't see? I'm good," she lied, forcing a smile. "Really good. Living in the city still, working, just life." His eyes moved down to her left hand. No ring. She saw him notice, saw something change in his expression. "First-class passengers may now board," the gate agent announced over the speaker. "That's you," Katie said quickly, grateful for the interruption. "You should go. It was really good seeing you, David, really good." "Wait," he said, and there was urgency in his voice. "How long is your flight?" "Where are you headed?" "Chicago. My sister's wedding," she said. "We'll be gone for the weekend." "I'm going to Chicago too," he said, his face brightening. "Business meetings. Katie, please let me buy you a coffee. We have time. There's so much I want to know, so much to catch up on." She wanted to say no. Every instinct screamed at her to make an excuse, to run away, to preserve what little dignity she had left. He didn't need to know how far she'd fallen. He didn't need to see the reality of her life beyond what had already spilled out of her purse. But Lily was already pulling at her hand. "Mommy, can we get hot chocolate, please?" And David was looking at her with those eyes, those same eyes from 15 years ago, and she'd never been able to say no to him then either. "Okay," she heard herself say. "Just for a few minutes." David's whole face lit up and he turned to his assistant. "Melissa, can you handle the boarding?" "I'll catch up." "Sir, you really should," Melissa started, but David was already shaking his head. "It's fine. This is important. Just get me on the plane. I'll be there before takeoff." They walked to a nearby coffee shop, David carrying Lily's backpack despite Katie's protests. He ordered without asking about prices, getting fancy lattes and a hot chocolate with extra whipped cream for Lily, plus muffins and fruit cups. Katie cringed internally, thinking about how much this was costing, but before she could say anything, he'd already paid. They sat at a small table by the window where they could still see their gate. Lily happily attacked her muffin, getting crumbs everywhere, while Katie wrapped her hands around her coffee cup and wondered how she'd ended up in this surreal situation. "So," David said, leaning back in his chair, 15 years. "That's a long time." "It really is," she agreed, taking a sip of coffee that was honestly the best thing she'd tasted in weeks. You look really successful, David. That suit, the first-class tickets, the assistant. You've done well." He shrugged, but she could see pride in his eyes. "I started a company after grad school. Tech stuff, app development. It took off faster than I expected. We've grown a lot in the past few years." "That's amazing," she said, and meant it. David had always been brilliant, always full of ideas. She wasn't surprised he'd succeeded. "I remember you talking about wanting to build something of your own. You remember that?" he asked, looking pleased. "I remember a lot," she admitted before she could stop herself. They looked at each other for a long moment, years of history hanging in the air between them. She thought about late-night study sessions, stolen kisses in the library, plans they'd made for a future that never happened, about the breakup that had been nobody's fault and everyone's fault at the same time, just life pulling them in different directions when they were too young to fight against it. "What about you?" he asked gently. "Tell me about your life. Is there a dad in the picture?" Katie's jaw tightened. "No. He left when I was pregnant. Haven't heard from him in almost 2 years. No child support, no contact, nothing." David's expression darkened. "I'm sorry." "That's terrible." "It's fine," she said automatically, the lie she told everyone. "We're doing fine. I work at Murphy's Diner downtown. Been there for about 4 years now." The tips are decent and they're flexible about my schedule because of Lily. And I pick up shifts at a hotel on weekends sometimes, just for extra money. She didn't mention that decent tips meant she still struggled to pay bills every month. That extra money was the only reason they had food some weeks. That she was exhausted down to her bones and couldn't remember the last time she'd done something just for herself. David was quiet, and when she looked at him, his expression was thoughtful, almost sad. "You wanted to be a teacher," he said softly. "I remember you were so excited about it." Her throat tightened. "Yeah, well, life had other plans. I never finished my degree. Got pregnant, got married, got divorced, got busy surviving." She forced a laugh that sounded bitter even to her own ears. "Maybe someday." "Mommy's the best mommy ever," Lily piped up, chocolate smeared across her face. "She reads me stories every night and makes the best mac and cheese, and she always makes me feel better when I'm sick." Katie felt tears prick her eyes. She reached over to wipe Lily's face with a napkin. "Thank you, baby." "She's beautiful," David said, watching them. "She looks like you." "She acts like me, too," Katie said, grateful for the change in subject. "Stubborn as anything. But she's sweet and smart, and she's honestly the only thing that keeps me going sometimes." The gate agent's voice crackled over the speaker again. "This is the final boarding call for Flight 847 to Chicago. All passengers should be on board." "We need to go," Katie said, standing up quickly. "Thank you for the coffee." "And the muffin." "It was really good seeing you, David." "Katie, wait," he said, standing too. He pulled out his wallet and handed her a business card. "Please take this. Call me, text me, email me, whatever. I meant what I said earlier. I have so many questions, so much I want to know. Don't just disappear again." She took the card, feeling the expensive weight of it between her fingers. David Chen, CEO, Chen Enterprises. A phone number, an email, a fancy logo. "I don't think," she started. "Please," he interrupted. And there was something in his voice that made her stop. Something vulnerable. "Just don't throw it away, okay? Think about it." She nodded, tucking the card into her purse. They gathered their things and rushed to the gate, making it just as the agent was about to close the door. "Boarding passes," the agent said impatiently. Katie fumbled with hers, finally getting it scanned. Lily went through, skipping toward the jetway. But then David was talking to the agent, and the agent was typing something on her computer. And suddenly she was looking at Katie with an entirely different expression. "Ma'am, there's been an upgrade," the agent said. "You and your daughter have been moved to first class. New boarding passes are printing now." "What?" "Oh, there must be a mistake," Katie said, her face going hot. "No mistake," David said from behind her, and when she spun around, he was smiling. "Consider it a welcome back gift. An old friend helping out another old friend. Please don't argue. Just enjoy the flight." "David, I can't," she started. But he was already walking through the gate. "See you on the plane?" "Katie," he called back. And suddenly she was holding first-class boarding passes and the agent was ushering her through, and Lily was squealing with excitement about the fancy seats, and Katie's head was spinning. She followed Lily down the jetway, her mind racing. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. David Chen, the boy she'd loved and lost, was now some kind of millionaire, and he'd just upgraded her tickets like it was nothing. And the worst part? The absolutely worst part? She was going to be sitting next to him for the next 2 hours, pretending her heart wasn't breaking all over again. Katie had never been in first class before. She'd walked past those big seats plenty of times, lugging her carry-on to the back of the plane where her knees pressed against the seat in front, and crying babies surrounded her from all sides. She'd always wondered what it was like up here, in this part of the plane that seemed to exist in a completely different world. Now she knew. It was like a completely different universe. The seats were huge, like recliners you'd have in your living room. There was actual legroom. A flight attendant appeared the moment they sat down, offering them orange juice or champagne in real glasses, not plastic cups. Lily's eyes were as big as saucers. "Mommy, is this really our seat?" she whispered, bouncing slightly on the leather cushion. "Yes, baby," Katie said, still feeling like any second someone would realize there'd been a terrible mistake and kick them back to economy. "But we need to sit still and be good, okay?" David was already settled in the seat across the aisle from them. He'd taken off his suit jacket and rolled up his sleeves, looking more like the David she remembered from college. His assistant, Melissa, sat in the row behind him, already typing away on her laptop. "Everything okay?" David asked, leaning slightly toward her. This is insane, Katie said quietly, so Lily wouldn't hear. David, these tickets probably cost more than I make in a month. I can't accept this. Too late, he said with that grin she remembered, the one that used to make her forget whatever she was mad about. Tickets are non-refundable, so you might as well enjoy it. Before she could argue, the flight attendant was back asking if they wanted anything. Lily, who'd never met a stranger, immediately asked if they had cookies. Within minutes, she had a plate of warm chocolate chip cookies and a cup of milk in a real glass. This is the best day ever, Lily announced, cookie crumbs already decorating her shirt. Katie watched her daughter's joy and felt her resistance crumbling. When was the last time Lily had been this excited about something? When was the last time Katie had been able to give her daughter something special without worrying about the cost? The plane started moving, backing away from the gate. Katie automatically reached for Lily's hand. Her daughter had flown before, but only once, and she'd been scared during takeoff. You nervous, sweetheart? Katie asked. Lily nodded, squeezing her mom's hand tight. Hey, Lily, David said from across the aisle. Want to know a secret? I used to be scared of flying too. Lily looked at him with interest. Really? Really? But then someone taught me a trick. When the plane takes off, you have to imagine you're a bird. Close your eyes and picture yourself flying above the clouds, seeing everything below getting smaller and smaller. It's like magic. Does it work? Lily asked skeptically. Try it and see. As the plane picked up speed down the runway, Katie watched her daughter close her eyes tight, a small smile on her face. She was picturing herself as a bird thanks to David. And when the plane lifted off the ground, Lily didn't whimper or squeeze Katie's hand harder. She just kept her eyes closed, that little smile still there. It worked, Lily said when they leveled out. I was an eagle. An eagle, David corrected gently, then caught himself. Sorry, I didn't mean to. No, it's fine, Katie said. She needs to learn proper grammar. I try, but... She trailed off, not wanting to admit that she was so tired most days that she didn't have the energy to correct every mistake. Once they were in the air and the seatbelt sign turned off, Lily became fascinated with everything around her. The TV screen in front of her seat, the button that made her seat recline, the little table that folded out. A flight attendant brought her coloring books and crayons, and soon she was completely absorbed in her activity. David unbuckled his seatbelt and moved to the empty seat next to Katie. Is this okay? He asked. I thought maybe we could talk without shouting across the aisle. Sure, Katie said, her heart doing that annoying flutter thing again. They sat in silence for a moment. Katie didn't know where to start. 15 years was a lot of time to catch up on, and most of her life in those 15 years wasn't stuff she wanted to share. So, David started. Tell me about the wedding. Your sister's getting married? Yeah, Rachel, finally. She and Tom have been together for like 8 years. I honestly thought they'd never make it official, but here we are. Are you in the wedding? Bridesmaid, Katie confirmed. Which means I had to buy a dress I'll never wear again. But that's weddings for you. She tried to keep her tone light, but she was still stressed about that dress. $200 for something she'd wear once. But Rachel was her only sister, and she couldn't say no. And Lily's the flower girl, David said, glancing over at her daughter. She must be excited. She's been practicing walking slowly and not throwing the petals all at once for weeks, Katie said with a laugh. I keep telling her it's going to be fine, but she takes her responsibilities very seriously. Wonder where she gets that from, David said, and there was warmth in his voice that made Katie's chest ache. She'd forgotten how well he knew her, how he could say something simple and have it mean so much more. What about you? Katie asked, needing to shift the focus away from herself. You said you have business meetings in Chicago. Yeah, we're looking at acquiring a smaller tech company there. It's a good fit for what we do. Should be wrapped up by Monday. Acquiring a company, Katie repeated. David, that's incredible. I mean, I knew you were smart, but this is... She gestured vaguely, trying to find words. You really made it. You built something amazing. He shrugged, but she could see he was pleased. I got lucky. Right place, right time, right idea. The company I started developed an app for small businesses to manage their inventory and sales. It took off faster than I expected, and then we expanded into other business solutions. Now we have about 300 employees across 5 offices. 300 employees. 5 offices. Katie tried to wrap her mind around it. The David she'd known had been brilliant but uncertain about his future. He'd talked about wanting to do something big but hadn't known what. And now look at him. That's really amazing, she said softly. Your parents must be so proud. Something flickered across his face. My dad passed away 4 years ago. Heart attack. But yeah, he was proud. My mom never stops bragging to everyone at her book club. David, I'm so sorry about your dad, Katie said, instinctively reaching out to touch his arm. I know how close you two were. Thank you, he said, covering her hand with his. It was hard, but it also made me realize life's too short to wait for the perfect moment. That's actually when I really pushed to grow the company, stopped being cautious and just went for it. They sat like that for a second, his hand over hers, and Katie felt like she was 21 again, sitting in the college library, believing anything was possible. She pulled her hand back, feeling flustered. So, what about your personal life? Are you married, kids? No and no, he said, holding her gaze. I was engaged once, about 5 years ago. Jennifer, she was great, really. Smart, successful, beautiful. Everyone said we were perfect together. What happened? Katie asked, trying to ignore the relief she felt hearing that he wasn't married. She wanted me to be someone I wasn't, David said carefully. She loved the successful businessman version of me, but that's all she wanted. She didn't like when I stayed up late working on new ideas or when I wanted to do normal things like go to baseball games or eat cheap tacos from food trucks. Everything had to be 5-star restaurants and charity galas and appearing in the right magazines. I realized I was changing who I was to fit what she wanted, and that's not what love should be. Katie thought about her own marriage, how Tom had promised her everything and delivered nothing, how he'd said he wanted a family, but left the moment things got hard. No, it shouldn't, she agreed quietly. What about you? David asked. You said Lily's father left when you were pregnant? Katie took a breath. This was the part of her story she hated telling, but David deserved honesty. Tom and I got married right after graduation. I thought we were on the same page about everything. I was going to finish my teaching degree. He was working as an accountant. We'd start a family eventually. It all seemed perfect. But it wasn't, David said gently. But it wasn't, she confirmed. I got pregnant unexpectedly when I was in my last year of school. Tom seemed happy at first, but as it got closer to Lily being born, he started pulling away. Coming home late, being distant. I thought it was just stress. Then when Lily was 6 months old, he just left. Packed a bag while I was at my mom's place. Cleaned out our joint bank account and disappeared. Katie, I'm so sorry. I tried to find him for a while. For child support, you know? But he'd quit his job, moved out of state, basically vanished. My lawyer said we could try to track him down, but it would cost more money than I had, so I just let it go. Lily doesn't remember him, which is probably for the best. That must have been incredibly hard, David said. It was, Katie admitted. I had to drop out of school. I had a baby to take care of, and I had no money. I moved in with my mom for a while, but that was complicated. She meant well, but she kept telling me I'd made bad choices and needed to figure things out. So I got the job at the diner, found a cheap apartment, and just survived. She didn't mention the nights she'd cried herself to sleep, wondering how her life had gotten so far off track, the times she'd had to choose between buying groceries or paying the electric bill, the constant gnawing fear that she wasn't doing enough, wasn't being enough, wasn't giving Lily the life she deserved. David was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. You're amazing, Katie. I know you probably don't feel like it, but you are. You're raising a beautiful, happy little girl all by yourself while working 2 jobs. That's not just surviving. That's being a warrior. Katie felt tears prick her eyes. She couldn't remember the last time someone had said something like that to her. I don't feel like a warrior. Most days I just feel tired. That's because you're doing the work of 3 people, David said. Give yourself some credit. The flight attendant appeared, asking if they wanted lunch. Katie was about to say no, not wanting David to pay for anything else, but he was already ordering for all of them. Lily got chicken nuggets and fries, which made her absolutely ecstatic. Katie got a sandwich that was actually good, nothing like the sad airplane food she remembered. As they ate, the conversation shifted to lighter topics. David told her funny stories about business meetings gone wrong and a disastrous attempt at learning to play golf for networking purposes. Katie shared stories about customers at the diner, including one regular who always ordered the same thing, but spent 20 minutes describing exactly how he wanted it prepared. Lily finished her food and fell asleep with her head on Katie's lap. worn out from the early morning and all the excitement. Katie gently stroked her daughter's hair, feeling a contentment she hadn't felt in a long time. "She's out cold," David observed with a smile. "She's not much of a morning person," Katie said. "Getting her up for this flight was not easy. She seems like a great kid." "She's the best thing that ever happened to me," Katie said simply. "Even on the hardest days, when I'm exhausted and stressed and don't know how I'm going to make ends meet, I look at her and remember why I keep going." David looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Katie, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Do you ever think about what might have been? With us, I mean," her breath caught. "Sometimes," she admitted. "Especially lately, actually. I've been thinking a lot about the paths we take and the choices we make. What if I'd done things differently? What if we'd tried harder to make it work after graduation?" "I think about it too," David said quietly. "More than I probably should. I've dated other people, I was even engaged, but nobody ever made me feel the way you did. Do you remember that night before graduation? When we stayed up on the roof of your apartment building, watching the sunrise?" "I remember," Katie said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You said we'd always find our way back to each other. That real love doesn't just disappear." "I meant it," he said, his eyes locked on hers. "I know 15 years have passed. I know we're different people now. But Katie, seeing you today, talking to you, it's like no time has passed at all. I still—" He trailed off, and Katie's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. "David," she started, not knowing how to finish. "I'm not trying to complicate your life," he said quickly. "I just wanted you to know. I never stopped caring about you. And now that I've found you again, I don't want to lose you." The plane's speaker crackled to life. "Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be beginning our descent into Chicago shortly. Please return to your seats and ensure your seatbelts are fastened." The moment was broken, but the words hung in the air between them. David moved back to his seat, and Katie gently woke Lily up to put her seatbelt on. As the plane descended, Katie's mind raced. David still had feelings for her. After all this time, after everything that had happened, he still cared. Part of her wanted to leap at the possibility of rekindling what they'd had, but the practical part of her, the part that had been beaten down by life, whispered warnings. He was a successful CEO with a company and money in a whole different world. She was a single mom working at a diner. They didn't belong in the same universe. The plane touched down and passengers started gathering their belongings. David pulled down Katie's carry-on for her, and they walked off the plane together. In the terminal, Melissa appeared at David's side with his briefcase. "Mr. Chen, your car is waiting. You have that meeting at 2. "I know, Melissa. Thank you." Katie felt the moment slipping away. This was it. They'd go their separate ways, and this would just be a strange, wonderful memory. "Katie," David said, pulling out another business card and a pen. He wrote something on the back and handed it to her. "This is my personal cell phone. Not my work number, not my assistant's line, mine. Please call me. Let me take you to dinner while we're both in Chicago. Or coffee. Or just a walk, anything." She took the card, feeling the weight of the decision. Say yes and open herself up to possibilities and complications. Say no and always wonder what if. "I'm here for my sister's wedding," she said slowly. "It's going to be busy." "I understand," David said, trying to hide his disappointment. "But," Katie continued, "maybe Sunday. After the wedding? Before I fly back?" His face lit up like she'd just given him the best news in the world. "Sunday, perfect, I'll make it work." "Okay then," she said, smiling despite herself. "Okay," he repeated, grinning. They stood there for another moment, neither wanting to leave. "Mr. Chen," Melissa said again, more urgently. "I really have to go," David said. "But I'll text you, okay? And Katie, I'm really glad I bumped into you today." "Me too," she admitted. She watched him walk away, his assistant hurrying to keep up, and felt like maybe, just maybe, life was about to get interesting again. The wedding was beautiful. Rachel looked stunning in her dress, and Lily did her job perfectly, walking down the aisle with careful steps and tossing rose petals exactly the way she'd practiced. Katie stood up front as a bridesmaid, smiling and holding back tears. But her mind kept drifting to David. He'd texted her that night after they landed. Just a simple message saying it was good to see her, and he was looking forward to Sunday. She'd stared at that text for 20 minutes before responding with something equally simple. Since then, they'd exchanged a few messages each day. Nothing deep, just small talk. But each time her phone buzzed, her heart jumped. Now it was Sunday morning, and Katie was a nervous wreck. "You're wearing a hole in the carpet," Rachel said, watching her sister pace back and forth in the hotel room. The wedding was over, the guests had gone home, and Rachel was supposed to be packing for her honeymoon. Instead, she was watching Katie have a minor breakdown. "I shouldn't go," Katie said for the 10th time. "This is crazy. What am I even doing?" "You're going on a date with a guy you used to love who apparently still has feelings for you and happens to be rich," Rachel said bluntly. "Most people would call that a good thing. But what's the point?" Katie asked, flopping down on the bed. "Even if something happens, even if we still have feelings for each other, so what? He lives in this whole different world. I have nothing to offer him." Rachel sat down next to her and took her hand. "Katie, listen to me. You've been alone for so long, working yourself to death, never doing anything for yourself. When was the last time you went on a date? Or even just did something fun?" Katie thought about it. "I don't know. 2 years ago? Maybe 3? Exactly. You deserve this. You deserve to have someone look at you the way David looked at you at the wedding." Katie's head snapped up. "What do you mean? David wasn't at the wedding." "No, but I saw you checking your phone every 5 minutes yesterday, smiling at whatever he was texting you. And I remember how you used to talk about him back in college. You loved him, Katie, real deep crazy love. Maybe this is the universe giving you a second chance. Or maybe this is the universe setting me up for heartbreak," Katie muttered. "Maybe," Rachel agreed. "But wouldn't you rather know than spend the rest of your life wondering?" A text came through on Katie's phone. "David," saying he was downstairs in the lobby whenever she was ready. "No pressure, take her time. He's here," Katie said, her voice coming out squeaky. "Then go," Rachel said, pulling her sister to her feet. "And Katie, have fun. Just for today. Forget about all the reasons this might not work and just enjoy being with someone who clearly cares about you." Katie looked at herself in the mirror one more time. She'd borrowed a dress from Rachel, something casual but nice. She'd actually done her hair and put on makeup. She barely recognized herself. Lily was staying with Rachel and her new husband for the day. They were going to take her to the zoo, something Lily had been excited about all morning. At least Katie didn't have to worry about her daughter. She could just focus on not making a complete fool of herself. She took the elevator down to the lobby, her stomach doing flips the entire way. When the doors opened, she saw David immediately. He was standing near the windows, looking at his phone, wearing jeans and a nice shirt. Casual David. The David she remembered. He looked up and his face broke into the biggest smile. "Katie, you look beautiful." "Thanks," she said, feeling her cheeks heat up. "You look nice too. I thought we could walk around the city a bit, maybe grab brunch. There's this place not far from here that makes amazing pancakes, unless you'd rather do something else." "Pancakes sound perfect," Katie said. They left the hotel and started walking. It was a beautiful spring day, warm but not too hot with a light breeze. Chicago was alive with people enjoying the weather, and for the first time in years, Katie felt like she was one of them. Not rushing to work, not worrying about bills, just walking and enjoying a beautiful day. "So how was the wedding?" David asked as they walked. "It was great." Rachel was so happy and everything went smoothly. "Lily did amazing as the flower girl. She was so serious about it, counting her steps and making sure she didn't throw all the petals at once." David laughed. "I bet she was adorable." "She really was," Katie said, pulling out her phone to show him pictures. "See? Look at how focused she is." David looked through the photos, smiling at each one. "She's really special, Katie. You've done an amazing job raising her." "I'm trying," Katie said. "Some days are harder than others." They reached the restaurant, a cozy little place with mismatched furniture and the smell of coffee and cinnamon in the air. David had apparently called ahead because they were seated immediately at a quiet table in the corner. The waitress brought menus and coffee, and Katie tried not to stare at the prices. Everything was expensive, way more than she'd normally spend. She started looking for the cheapest thing on the menu. "Order whatever you want," David said, like he could read her mind. "Seriously. The blueberry pancakes here are incredible, and they have this caramel French toast that's basically dessert for breakfast." "David, I can't let you keep paying for everything," Katie said quietly. "Why not?" Because it's not fair. You've already done so much. The plane tickets and now this, and I can't pay you back." David reached across the table and took her hand. "Katie, I'm not keeping track. I'm not expecting you to pay me back. I asked you to spend the day with me because I wanted to, because seeing you again has been the best thing that's happened to me in years. Please just let me do this. Let me treat you to a nice meal without worrying about the cost. Can you do that? Katie looked at their hands, his warm and strong around hers, and felt something in her chest crack open. When was the last time someone had wanted to take care of her even in this small way? Okay, she said softly. She ordered the blueberry pancakes and David got the French toast. When the food came, it was even better than it looked. Katie couldn't remember the last time she'd had a breakfast that didn't come from a box or the diner where she worked. Oh my God, she said after the first bite. This is amazing, right? David said, looking pleased. I found this place the last time I was in Chicago for business. I've been wanting to bring someone here. You haven't brought anyone else here? Katie asked. Nope. I was waiting for the right person. They ate and talked, the conversation flowing easily like it always had between them. David told her about his business, about the company he was trying to acquire, about the challenges of managing so many employees. Katie found herself telling him things she rarely shared with anyone, about how lonely she got sometimes, working all the time and never having adult conversation, about how she worried constantly that she wasn't doing enough for Lily, about how scared she was that she'd never be more than she was right now. You're already so much, David said seriously. Katie, you're raising a child alone while working 2 jobs. You're keeping everything together on your own. That's not nothing. That's extraordinary. It doesn't feel extraordinary, Katie admitted. It feels like drowning most days. What if it didn't have to be that way? David asked carefully. Katie looked up at him. What do you mean? He was quiet for a moment, like he was choosing his words carefully. My company has a charitable foundation. We started it about a year ago, focusing on education programs for kids who don't have a lot of opportunities. We provide after-school programs, tutoring, scholarships, things like that. That's really wonderful, Katie said, wondering where this was going. We need someone to run it, David continued. Someone who understands what it's like to struggle, who has empathy for these kids and their families. Someone who wanted to be a teacher and help children but never got the chance. Someone like you. Katie's fork clattered onto her plate. Wait, what? I'm offering you a job, David said. Director of the Chen Foundation. You'd develop programs, work with schools, manage the staff, decide where the money goes. It's everything you wanted to do with your teaching degree, but bigger. You'd be helping hundreds of kids instead of one classroom. David, I don't have any experience with that kind of thing, Katie said, her heart pounding. I barely finished college. I've been a waitress for 4 years. You have the most important experience, David insisted. You know what these kids are going through because you've lived it. You understand the barriers they face. And you're smart, Katie, you always were. You can learn the rest. Katie's mind was racing. A job like that would pay more than both her current jobs combined. She could afford better health care for Lily. They could move to a safer neighborhood. She could stop working nights and weekends. She could breathe. But doubt crept in fast. This is charity, she said, her voice shaking slightly. You're offering me this because you feel sorry for me. I'm offering you this because you're perfect for it, David said firmly. Katie, I've been trying to fill this position for 3 months. I've interviewed a dozen people with fancy degrees and impressive resumes, and none of them felt right. They all talked about poverty and struggle like it was something they'd read about in a book. You've lived it. You know it. That matters. But people will think I only got the job because of us. Our history. Let them think what they want, David said. You and I will know the truth. You'll prove yourself with your work. And honestly, I don't care what anyone else thinks. Katie sat back in her chair, overwhelmed. This was too much too fast. A week ago, her biggest concern was whether she could pick up enough shifts to pay rent on time. Now she was being offered a dream job by the man she'd never stopped loving. There's something else, David said quietly. And I need you to hear this separate from the job offer. What I'm about to say has nothing to do with the foundation or employment or any of that. Okay, Katie whispered. I never stopped thinking about you, David said, his eyes locked on hers. For 15 years I wondered where you were, what you were doing, if you were happy. I dated other people, I tried to move on, but nobody ever felt right because they weren't you. When I saw you at that airport, it was like everything clicked back into place, like I'd been walking around half asleep and suddenly woke up. Katie felt tears threatening. David, I know your life is complicated, he continued. I know you have Lily to think about and responsibilities and a million reasons to be cautious. I'm not asking you to jump into anything. I'm just asking for a chance, a real chance, to see if what we had is still there, to see if maybe we could build something together. I'm scared, Katie admitted, her voice barely audible. I'm scared to believe this is real. I'm scared to trust that good things can actually happen to me, and I'm terrified of letting Lily get attached to someone who might leave. I understand, David said, and I can't promise that everything will be perfect or that we won't face challenges. But I can promise that I'm not going anywhere. I've spent 15 years looking for something I only ever found with you. I'm not going to walk away from a second chance. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything hanging between them. Katie thought about Lily, about the life they could have. She thought about her dreams that she'd buried so deep she'd almost forgotten they existed. She thought about the girl she used to be, the one who believed in love and possibilities. Can I think about it? She asked. The job offer, I mean. That's a big decision. Of course, David said. Take all the time you need. The position isn't going anywhere. And the other thing? Katie asked, her heart in her throat. Us? David reached across the table and took both her hands in his. For that, I just need one answer. Will you give me a chance? Will you let me take you on real dates and get to know Lily and see where this goes? No pressure, no expectations, just a chance. Katie looked at their hands intertwined on the table. She thought about Rachel's words that morning. Wouldn't you rather know than spend the rest of your life wondering? Yes, she said, and felt like she was jumping off a cliff. Yes, I'll give you a chance. The smile that spread across David's face was worth every bit of fear she felt. He squeezed her hands, and for a moment they just sat there, holding on to each other like they were the only two people in the world. There is one condition, though, Katie said, trying to regain some sense of control. Anything. We take this slow. Really slow. I need to protect Lily. She's been through enough with her dad leaving. I can't introduce her to someone who might not stick around. I can do slow, David agreed. How about we start with a proper date next weekend? I'll fly to your city, we'll go to dinner, maybe a movie. Just the two of us. That sounds nice, Katie said, allowing herself to smile. And about the job, David added. I meant what I said. Think about it, talk to whoever you need to talk to, and let me know. But Katie, you deserve this opportunity. Don't let fear or pride stop you from taking it. They finished their breakfast and spent the rest of the day walking around Chicago. David showed her some of his favorite spots in the city, little parks and bookstores and a coffee shop with the best espresso she'd ever tasted. They talked about everything and nothing, laughing like they used to, falling back into the easy rhythm they'd always had. As the sun started to set, Katie realized she needed to get back to the hotel. Her flight was early the next morning and she needed to pack and spend some time with Lily. David walked her back to the hotel, and they stood outside the entrance, neither wanting the day to end. Thank you, Katie said, for today, for everything. This was really special. It was, David agreed. And Katie, this is just the beginning, I promise you that. He leaned in slowly, giving her plenty of time to pull away, but she didn't. When his lips met hers, it was like coming home. Soft and sweet and full of promise. When they pulled apart, Katie was smiling. I'll call you tomorrow, David said. You better, Katie replied. She walked into the hotel, feeling like she was floating. Her phone buzzed almost immediately. A text from David, already missing you. Katie laughed and texted back, dork. His response was instant. You're dork? Katie hesitated for only a second before typing, yeah, my dork. As she rode the elevator up to her room, Katie caught her reflection in the mirror. She looked different, lighter somehow, like someone had lifted a weight she'd been carrying for so long she'd forgotten it was there. Maybe Rachel was right. Maybe this was the universe giving her a second chance. And for the first time in years, Katie felt brave enough to take it. 3 months had passed since that day in Chicago, and Katie's life had changed in ways she was still trying to process. She'd accepted the job at the Chen Foundation. It had taken her 2 weeks of sleepless nights and countless conversations with Rachel before she finally said yes. The decision terrified her, but staying stuck in the same place terrified her more. Now she sat in her new office, which was bigger than her entire apartment used to be. Looking at the program proposals spread across her desk, She'd already launched 2 after-school tutoring programs in low-income neighborhoods and was working on a scholarship fund for single parents trying to finish their education. Every day felt meaningful in a way her waitressing jobs never had, but it wasn't easy. Not even close. Katie, do you have a minute? Jennifer stood in her doorway. Jennifer was the foundation's operations manager, a woman in her 40s with perfect hair and an attitude that made Katie feel like she was constantly being judged. Sure, what's up? Katie said, trying to sound confident. I've been looking at your budget proposal for the mentorship program, Jennifer said, walking in and dropping a folder on Katie's desk. These numbers don't make sense. You're allocating way too much for supplies and not enough for administrative costs. Katie felt her stomach tighten. She'd worked on that budget for days, researching and calculating, trying to get it right. I thought the priority should be getting resources directly to the kids rather than spending it on overhead. That's very idealistic, Jennifer said with a tight smile. But that's not how foundations work. We need proper administrative infrastructure or the whole program falls apart. I've made corrections. Just review them and resubmit by end of day. She left before Katie could respond. Katie opened the folder and felt her heart sink. Jennifer had basically rewritten the entire proposal. Maybe she was right. Maybe Katie really didn't know what she was doing. Her phone buzzed. A text from David. How's your day going? Katie stared at the message. She and David had been dating for 3 months now, taking it slow like she'd asked. He'd been amazing, patient, and understanding.
He came to visit her and Lily every weekend, never pushing for more than she was ready to give.
Last weekend, he'd taught Lily how to ride a bike, running alongside her in the park until she got it, both of them laughing and celebrating when she finally rode on her own. But Katie hadn't told him about the struggles at work. Every time something went wrong, every time she felt like she was drowning, she kept it to herself. She didn't want him to think he'd made a mistake hiring her. She didn't want to seem ungrateful or incapable. Good, she typed back. Busy day, how about you? She hated lying to him, but what else could she say? That evening, Katie picked up Lily from the after-school program at her new school. They'd moved to a better neighborhood, a nice 2-bedroom apartment with actual space and a working heater. Lily loved her new school, had made friends quickly, and her asthma was under control with the good health care Katie's new job provided. Mommy, can David come over for dinner tonight? Lily asked as they walked to their car. Katie had finally been able to buy a reliable used car, something that didn't break down every other week. Not tonight, sweetie. He's working late. He's always working, Lily pouted. I miss him. Katie's chest ached. Lily had grown attached to David quickly, despite Katie's attempts to keep some distance. And David was wonderful with her, genuinely interested in her drawings and her stories about school, treating her like she mattered.